This assignment is pretty straightforward. We are going to use paper mache, but we're going to use it in a slightly different way. Probably something you're more used to at the elementary school level. You're going to need a toilet paper roll or anything like that. And I'm going to give you a balloon like this. These balloons tend to be a little bit more round, but if you don't have a perfectly round balloon, then when you fill up your balloon, just hold it here at the edge and then just fill up this space, tie it up, and that'll give you a somewhat round balloon. So I'm going to fill up this balloon and then I'm going to hot glue it to this, and I'll be right back to hot glue it. When you fill up your balloon, you want to make sure it's not too big, but ultimately I'll leave that decision up to you. Just remember, the bigger it is, the more work you're going to have to do. So just make sure you don't go too big. I like to do something that can be held in the hand, but I think something around that size would be good for me. Make sure it's not too much bigger than this, right? Once your balloon is filled up, the next step is to get your hot glue, and you're going to put it just around the edge of your toilet paper roll or paper roll. I'm going to let that cool a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't pop the balloon. And after a few seconds, I'm going to try to put it on, and that should hold without popping. And remember, the objective here is to make the Bob-omb. Now, you know the next step. You should be very familiar with it. We're going to start paper mache, and we're just going to paper mache all around the balloon, but we're going to give it much more than 2 layers, maybe 4 layers, because we want that to be strong. We don't want it to collapse, and that's going to be the base of our next Mario character, which is the Bob-omb. So I'm going to start paper macheing, and we're going to do that the same way that we have been. So you're going to take just regular copy paper, and you can hold this up. Right, so this serves as a stand. You're going to put your name right here. So when we put them away, we know who they belong to. And we're not going to have a problem with that. I'll get your paper mache mix. And you just start putting it on, same way you've been doing it. The only difference is you're going to do this with multiple layers. Might have to get your hands dirty, but your paper mache mix is non-toxic, so it'll come right off. This is a round object, so maybe the smaller the pieces, the better off you're going to be as far as keeping the roundness of it, which I think is important for this, since it is meant to look like a little Bob-omb. Alright, so I'm going to add at least 1 layer. I'll come back, and I'll come back between every layer. I don't need to show you guys that whole thing, because you already know what that's like. So the way I'm laying the paper mache mix on is I'm just getting it all on first and kind of going down halfway. And then I'm going to put the paper on top, maybe not overlapping, but I'm just going to put a bunch of paper on top, and then I'll glue that paper down, and then in between the gaps I will apply more paper, more mix. Let me show you. And I think this way is just going to be faster. So right here, I'm just, without overlapping it, just going to put a piece. Then as I move on over here, I'll put another piece. Now, once I do that all the way around, I'm going to go back with my mix. And you might actually have to hold it down a bit. But if you just tap it like this, I think you'll be okay. Tapping it like that seems to keep it in place without moving it around too much. And then you could push it or slide it around. The brush, I mean. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So I've covered most of the top. Now I'm just gonna put glue on the rest of the balloon and I'm gonna continue that process. Don't worry about the edge right there. And don't worry about the piece that we can't see. That's through the little roll of cardboard. That's the piece where we're going to put the top, where the fuse is going to be. Let me just take advantage and start putting it on these pieces. If you give that a little bit of time, it should kind of stick with the glue that's underneath, and then you could just put it right on top. And we might just use the cardboard as the top piece where the fuse connects. All right, keep doing that until everything is covered. And even these cracks, so I wouldn't consider this a layer until these cracks are covered, like the spaces in between. And then that'll be the first layer. And you do it again. I'm thinking 3 to 4 layers. Okay, remember not to overlap your two dry, well, I don't know how to describe it. Just when you're applying another piece of paper, don't overlap them if they don't have glue over them. So right here I have a space where I need a very unique cut. And if I were to put another paper in there, it would overlap with these that don't have glue on them. So instead of just putting a paper on there, I'm gonna glue down the ones that I do have. That way I can comfortably put a paper over it, and if it overlaps, well then it's gonna be okay. If you do overlap them, then you're just gonna have a weak point in that space where they overlap. And I would like to avoid that. Now that I have put glue there, now it's okay to overlap because now there's a layer of glue in between the two. And that's what you're gonna do in all of these pieces. Once it's time to start covering the gaps, what I would do, you still have to make sure that they don't overlap. What I'm doing is I'm taking strips, and let's say there's a gap right here, so I'm just going to put that there. And now this is going to create a little space here, but we'll cover that in the second layer and so on. So I'm just covering up what I can without having it overlap. And I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to glue over those areas. If you feel like you can't continue without overlapping, like I have right here, just put glue on this piece and this piece, and then put the piece that's going to go here. Again, that's so you create a layer in between, and it's going to hold together better. Now it's okay to go over. I'm almost done with the first layer, but as I'm continuously inspecting it, there's little openings to the balloon. So I'm gonna keep finding those little gaps, fill them with a piece of paper, and once they're all covered up, that'll be my first layer. And the reason we have to do many layers with this is because this balloon technique, like one layer, for instance, if you only have one layer and you pop the balloon inside, it will collapse, including the paper mache mix. It's very fragile. So I'm going to finish up that first layer. Okay, so I finally plugged up the remaining gaps, and I'm going to just paper mache over those areas. And once I do, that's going to be the first layer done. I'm going to let it dry before I come back for my second layer. And ultimately, you guys will learn how many layers we're going to need. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know what works, because we are going to have to pop that balloon inside. And once we pop it, we don't want this to collapse. We want it to keep its round form. And we could have done what we did for the piranha plant, that method, to try to create a sphere. But I just want to teach you guys a different way to do it. I think you could also go, I'm not going to allow it for this assignment, but if you were working on your own, you could also go get like a giant styrofoam ball, like a Christmas ornament. And I think that might work. You just have to be careful when you paint the styrofoam to make it look good, but I think it might work. But what we're doing is we're learning different techniques. Remember, the class is about learning, it's not about producing. So I want you guys to learn this way. Okay, that's the first layer. Look it over one more time. Make sure that all of the paper is paper mache, the mix. And I'm gonna let that dry before I add my second layer. You should let that dry. Just put it away in storage and let it and pick it up again next class. So this isn't completely dry, and as it starts to dry, you can see the little bits that I missed. But I think it's dry enough. I'm gonna start applying my second layer, and I'll come back when that's done. So the second layer is on, and I'm just gonna let that dry and add one more layer. I think 3 should be enough. Same way. It takes a while, but I think 1 class period is enough per layer. So you'll have 3 class periods to add 3 layers, or maybe more, or maybe less. I don't know. Depends on the moment. My second layer is almost dry. I'm gonna start applying the third layer, and you determine what you think is enough. I think just for purposes of the video, I'll stop at 3. But I really want it to hold up once the balloon is popped. Which you can see the balloon still is inflated and it's in there. You kind of check to see how much bounce it has as well. So yeah, I'm gonna do a third layer, and I'm gonna stop there. I'm just finalizing the third layer, and once that's done, it's got some weight to it too. You can feel it's starting to get heavier. I think that'll be enough to hold its form once I pop the balloon. But this is the first step. So do this, and then on the next video you'll see what we're gonna do next. So I've applied the third layer, and I'm gonna stop there. Try to make sure that you don't have any edges that are coming up too much. I know it's inevitable. And the smaller the pieces you use, the longer it's gonna take, but the better it's gonna look. And we'll see what the final result is. I mean, this is my first time doing this. I don't think it'll be bad. We'll see. That's it for the first video. So I think it's finally firm enough that it doesn't need the balloon anymore. And actually I added one more layer of tissue, so it will kind of smooth it out a bit. So one layer of paper mache, but with tissue. And you could kind of see it on there. Let me try to focus the camera. But I think that texture is going to be fine, as opposed to having the big pieces of paper. And the next steps are going to be to create the winding mechanism for the Bob-omb. Just look at any reference. And we're going to create the feet. I'm going to try to make it look so it's like it's taking one step. And then the other foot up in the air. And it's really important that it stays light for that. And then we're going to try to put a lot of weight in that one foot. I don't know if it's going to work or not. It'd be very easy to just do the 2 feet coming straight down, but I thought it'd be a little bit more dynamic if it looked like it was moving. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on the winding mechanism, and then we're going to work on the feet. And like I said, I've never done it before, but I have a few ideas, and we'll see if they work or not. All right, so we are going to build the little winding mechanism. And you want to get a thick piece of cardboard. So I got these pieces, and it's about 3 pieces that I've hot glued together. You might want to practice drawing that on a separate sheet of paper. And you also want to make sure that it's about the size of the actual ball. So if you look at the reference photo, it's pretty large. And so I'm pretty happy with this size. That's why I did a little test drawing. Since the cardboard is much thicker, it's going to be a little bit tougher to cut. It might be better to do one at a time, but we'll find out. So all you got to do is draw it out. And this area right here in the photo reference is kind of like round. And we're going to try to figure that out in a second. Oops, it's too big. Now this isn't super important, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect. It can be your own thing. It's what makes things special sometimes, is the way you do it. This is going to be pretty tough to cut out, but we'll see. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend that you probably, before gluing those pieces together, cut one out. Then cut another one out, glue them together, and cut another one out, because right now I've made it a little bit more difficult for myself and having to cut this out like this. So I'm gonna finish cutting it out, and then I'll tell you what I do with that. What I'm thinking is I'm just gonna like kind of drill it like that, and then chip away at the pieces to clean it up a bit. So I cut that out. It wasn't too difficult. Now I'm going to try and cut this out, which I assume will be more difficult, but I'm just going to widen this hole as much as I can. So I'm going to start there. Be careful if you're doing something like this not to hurt yourself. Okay, I don't know that that's gonna work. I might have to bring some of my tools to class. Let me check. So this is part of my tools, and you attach this to a drill, and I know if I did, it would just open a hole right through this. I don't know if we gotta attach it to the drill. We could just use it with our hands That way we avoid possibly getting hurt. And that's working. I mean, it's not as good as attaching it to the drill. Back came off a bit, that's okay. So maybe from the other way. It's working, but I think I am gonna maybe use the drill. Maybe much cleaner. Go get the drill. Okay, I got my drill, and hopefully this will be much quicker. I'll be doing this for you guys, so I'll just bring the drill to class. Like we did before with the piranha plant, like I was helping you cut the spheres in half. Yeah, that one's like way cleaner than the other one. So, let me pick away at these little remnants. You shouldn't have this problem because as I help you cut it, it should be pretty clean like this one. All right, I think I'm pretty cool with that. All right, now we have to make this bulge out a bit. Alright, so we're going to use these smoothie straws, and that's going to go attached to this piece, okay? But before that, we need to wrap that smoothie straw in tape. But right now, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to outline it, and then I'm going to cut that space out. That's where it's going to be placed, and we're still going to have to make this round. Okay, I cut that out and I put this in there, but I think it best to cut all of this out, this round area. Then we're going to wrap this with the straw with tape, and then we're going to wrap the tip with napkin or some type of tissue. We'll wrap that in tape, and hopefully it'll be nice and round and be able to fit in that slot. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, I wrap that up in tape. Just going to cut the end. And the reason I wrapped it up is because we're going to put some hot glue in there. Maybe not. Let's leave this hollow because we don't want too much weight on this, because ultimately we're going to try to make it tilt and we want the least amount of weight possible. So now I'm going to attach some napkins here, and then I'm going to wrap that up in tape, and hopefully it'll fit nicely in that slot. So I've got this napkin, which I'm now going to wrap like this. Trying to keep this side as straight as possible, or any of the sides. Once I do that and I wrap it up, well, I'm going to glue it and then I'm going to wrap it up in tape, hopefully rounding out the top, and then I'm going to put it in there, and that's how we're going to do that. So I've wrapped that up and now I'm trying to fit it here, but it's a bit of a tight fit, so I'm gonna cut this a little bit longer and then I'm gonna fit it in there and I will glue it in there. So it's a bit of a tight fit and I had to like physically try to expand this. Go ahead and apply your glue here, and I'm just going to squeeze this on here and I'm going to push it down right along the middle. And if you get a little bit of buildup on the sides, just melt it off later with the tip of your glue gun. Try to make sure that it's in the middle, at least as much as possible. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this, but I am gonna go and seal up these little holes just with hot glue, and I did the same for this part here. So just with hot glue, I'm gonna make sure that those holes are filled. But I want to also make sure that it's flat. You don't want to leave it bumpy. So take a little piece of cardboard and just flatten it out, okay? And do that all the way around. And that's what I'm gonna do. So I figured out a better way to flatten that. So even if you leave it bumpy, you can just with the tip of the glue gun, just make sure it's hot and just push that down, and that's going to flatten it nicely. So you could just go all the way around with the hot glue, come back and flatten it like that. Even in the center here, you want to make sure that you cover up those gaps. And I just put the hot glue in there, and once it's ready, then you could just again take the tip of the glue gun and just push that into the edge. And that's going to seal that up. I'm just filling in a little gap right here from when I opened up that hole. Like I said, I don't think you guys are gonna have that problem because I'll do it for you. Maybe you will, and if you do, just fill it in, because we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna paper mache this. I don't think it's necessary. Usually we paper mache to strengthen, and we're not gonna paper mache this, but we are gonna coat it in a layer of glue, so that way we can paint it and the paint will adhere better. But we're gonna put it on before we coat it, that way it'll have a stand. So now we have to cut this because it's obviously it's way too long. So we're gonna cut it, and it has to be close. And it's time you guys start making some decisions, and I'm not gonna tell you every single little thing you have to do. So you determine how big you want it to be. So take a look at it and you determine, well, okay, you know, what's right. If you're not sure, go on the longer end, because it's very easy to take away, but you can't really add anything back. So I'm gonna go a little bit longer than I think is is going to be required. Okay. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take that piece that just fell off just for the video, and I'm going to try to glue it on to see how well it holds, because I have a feeling that this being, you know, just a straw isn't going to be strong enough to hold on to this. But then again, I don't know. Maybe it will be. Well, even if I do that straw, it won't have the weight that I need. So I'm going to cut a little bit more. And I'm gonna try to glue it on. Honestly, I don't think it's gonna work. But if it doesn't hold, then I'm gonna drill a hole and I'm gonna push it in there. And again, that's why probably you shouldn't take too much, because if I push it in there, then you know, I'm gonna lose this little bit. But you know, what the heck? Let's give it a shot. Put plenty, and remember that it's going to be like this, so find a spot you like, and just hold it. And I thought it was going to hold for a second, but it fell. Okay, I'm gonna hold it a few minutes and I'll be back. Oops. I guess it's good I caught that on video so you can see how durable it is. Now this isn't gonna be as durable as the piranha plant because we're not stuffing it with a bunch of stuff. It is holding, but a little bit spilled out here. I'm gonna reinforce it a bit around the edge here. And remember that you do have to put that tape on that straw, because I think the hot glue will melt the straw. So I'm just going to put some glue around, and then I'm going to flatten it the same way I did for this. And it seems okay. I don't know how well it's going to hold up to like paint and stuff, like if it'll be able to handle the weight of the paint. But I mean, we're gonna learn. Not bad, just a bit flimsy. I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to make it less flimsy. But I want to make sure. I want to keep going, and because I want it to stand on one leg, so maybe it's got to be a little bit flimsy and light so it can stand on one leg. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down because this is too long. Now again, I'm going to leave it up to you how low this should go. If you look, you have to look at the reference, and I think that the reference is actually pretty low. So you determine what's going to work for you or what you'll be happy with, and then cut it to that height. But if yours is already very low, you know, you could just keep it the way it is. I am going to trace the top like this, so I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to trace the top. Why am I going to do that? Because that's going to serve as the top when once it's cut. So you take this, you put it on cardboard, or you trace it on cardboard, and then that's going to be your top. But before that, we have to put the legs on. So I'm going to cut that now. I am very pleased with this height. Now, the moment of truth. I am confident that this will hold. It feels very firm. So I'm gonna pop this balloon. You need to judge for yourself if your sphere will hold. If it's not strong enough, you don't think it's strong enough, then add more layers. If you think it's strong enough and you pop the balloon and it collapses, then fill it, and you just have to make it standing straight up. So yeah, time to pop that balloon. Sorry, it's not as dramatic as you might have wanted, but I've made a hole in it, and now the air should be coming out. And it seems to be holding. As a matter of fact, the balloon is it's glued to the side. So that's good news for me, I think. And now the next steps are going to be to add the legs, and then we'll add the top here and the wick. Now, since I do want it to stand on one leg, what I was thinking of doing is getting a pencil and tilting it, right? And having that pencil come in like this, from this corner down, and having it come out of the bottom and having that be one of the legs. First, I gotta find a pencil. So I'm gonna go look for a pencil. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with this so far. Let me try to block that glare. We have to think about the feet. So it won't do me any good to put a hole in this if I don't have the feet ready. So I'm gonna build the feet. Luckily this still stands. So you have to examine the feet. And let's build them out. And my phone died. And then we'll put them in place. I'll tell you right now, the easier thing to do is to just make it standing straight up. And I'm gonna build one foot that's gonna go straight out, because I want it to tilt so it looks like it's walking. I think that's gonna be more dynamic. But if you're having any doubts and you just want to keep it simple, just build it standing straight up. I'll do that foot first. First, I have to charge my phone so I have something to look at, so I can look at my reference, or maybe I'll just look at my computer. Yeah, I'll just look at my computer. Okay, there's my laptop. Based on this reference, I am looking for a way to make the legs, not the foot, the legs. So I determined that one good way to do that might be to, this is why I'm asking you guys to hold on to these. And I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but I think it's going to come in very handy in the future as well. Hold on to this, and this is going to help you make those legs. So you're going to cut it like this. And with one piece you can get two legs. And the way that you're going to do that is, just so you have an idea, you fold it onto itself. And that is going to give you what you need. Now you got to get it to the right thickness. Once you have it at the right thickness, okay, when you cut it, you want to make sure that you don't cut it right on the edge. So let me give you an example. So you see the edge is out here. When I cut it, I'm going to cut it like this, okay, right? Not right on the edge, but in here. So when I do that, if I choose to glue them directly onto each other, it'll form a nice connection. So, and it'll be lighter. Remember that we're trying to keep it light so it possibly stands on, one foot. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get another piece and then I'm gonna glue it. Actually, I already did it. So these are a bit smaller. these two pieces. So I'm gonna glue them. Once I get them to the thickness that I like, I'm gonna glue them. And we're trying to make it light, everything except for the foot that's gonna be touching the ground. That foot we want to be heavy, so everything could balance on that foot. Okay, so I'm gonna glue these. These are too long, but I'm gonna glue those right now. So I've glued those together. Just try to make sure that they are consistent, and if you have the edge coming up like that, what you want to do is just put some glue there, and then you could even wait until it dries, but again, you're going to use the tip of the hot glue gun to smooth that out, and that should give you a more smooth end. Now the next thing is to determine how long these have to be. Look carefully at your reference, because you can see that that's going to be too long. It's going to be too long. And I'm going to cut it about, if you look at the reference, it seems like a foot, a leg would be about one of these. So I'm going to cut it to about there. Right there. And that's how I'm going to determine my width. And once you cut one, you can go ahead and cut the other. Now remember that bottom leg, we want to make it heavier. So I might just fill that in with rocks if I have to. And now I'm gonna put one leg here. And I'm pretty happy with that length. Let's see. So one leg here like this, and then the other one is going to go below. But I'm going to make sure that I make it flat as flat as possible, so it can stand on it. So I'm going to attach those right now. So I've added the legs, and now, like I said, you kind of want to have one that is steady and down the line, and I'm gonna add some weight to this, and I'm just gonna jam some pebbles or rocks in there, and I'm gonna try to seal them in there with hot glue, and that's gonna add weight to it. So when I add the foot, it'll have more weight, and hopefully it will stand upright on one foot. This is the foot that's going to be up in the air as if it were taking a step. Okay, so I'm going to add weight to that, and then I've already traced the foot. The foot, if you look at the reference, it is kind of bulging a bit. Not sure how I'm going to create that bulge. I could do it the way that I've taught you, by creating kind of an arch of cardboard. That way and that way. I think I may do that just so I could add more weight in there. For the other foot, the one that's going up, I might just do it with paper, like we did this, and that way it'll stay light. So heavy here, light here, and once those feet are done, that's going to be it for the video. What will be left after that is to add the top, add the wick or whatever that's called, and then give it a layer of glue, possibly paper mache, maybe not. And then just paint it, and this is a pretty easy and fun project. I'm working on the feet, and working on this piece. Now I think that's too high, so I'm gonna have to take that down a bit. So look at my reference and cut it down to what I think is a bit more reasonable. And then once you get that, you can curve it out. So that's going to be for the front here. I'll take a little bit more. And these are my 2 feet. It's going to be for the front. And I'm going to make this into an arch, so it's a hollow space inside. That way I could fill the bottom one with rocks, and it'll get heavier. And I could keep the other one empty, and it'll be light. And I'm gonna do this piece here, and I'll do another piece back here, of course the proper size. And then I'll do a piece along the middle. And all of it being hollow on the inside. Now, how do you get the right size for a piece in the back, let's say? Well, first you can measure how long it has to be, like this, right? So when I make this arch, I know that it's from this to this distance. And I could also know how high it's going to be, unless if it decreases in the back, which it does. So this one should be taller than this one. So we'll make it kind of around that big. Now, we don't have to go 100% with the reference. It's not always going to work for us. So now I'll cut out that piece and I'll trace it because I have 2 feet. And then I'll have that piece done. So I cut the arches and now I'm going to glue the top one there and the smaller one back there. Alright, so that's done. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but for the piece that goes here. And then the piece that goes here in between these two, and then the piece that goes back here. And then from there I'll decide if I'll do another one, maybe across the middle. Definitely, I don't know, we'll see. Let me do that first. So I finished what I said I would do, and I started taping around the cardboard edges. This is the light one. So this is the one that's gonna go here. The other one is gonna be filled with heavy things, and that one will go down there. But this one can be filled with tissue or paper, and that's what I'm doing currently. Okay, so I finally finished up the light foot, and I cut out a piece of poster board. I traced the foot, cut out a piece of poster board, and I sealed the edge with hot glue just to make it flat. Now I've got the heavier one. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna do the same thing with the heavier one, and I'm gonna make it flat. As a matter of fact, I think I might just do the heavier one with a piece of cardboard so it gives it a little bit more weight. And that's what I'm gonna do. And then I will try to put them on to see if they will stand. And maybe if I have to cut it, because now it's feeling a bit long. So I might have to cut it again. Okay, so I finally got the heavy foot, but I realized that this is too high, because the original height was supposed to be taking the foot into consideration. So I've already put weight in this one, so it's tough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to drill a hole through this one and move aside the rocks and push this through. And I'll try to do the same thing here. I'll try to put a hole in it and push that through, and that way it'll be firmly in there. So now that's what I'm going to do. Just with a pair of scissors, I'm going to try to open up a hole in here. And, you know, just make your feet shorter. Make your feet shorter. Okay guys, this worked really, really well. I'm really happy with it. This is just the top view. I'll show you what it looks like in a second from the side. But it's standing on one foot, and I am amazed, to be honest with you. And it worked, and I'm really happy. Hopefully you guys can get it to work as well. And it looks great. I'm thrilled. So let me give you a side view shortly, and the video will be over. The next video, we're going to complete the top. We're going to put the wick, and we're going to add the eyes. Yeah, we're going to add the eyes, and we're going to, then the video after that should be a short video. The video after that will be just painting. And this is a fun and quick project, and I think it's turning out great. This only stands occasionally, So it stands sometimes it doesn't. A lot of you are going to have a hard time. You see, so it falls over. So we have to make a stand for it. Remember the technique that I taught you to make a perfect circle? You're going to get a poster board, and you just got to make a few holes in it for your pencil to go through. How big should the stand be? I don't know. That's up to you guys. You guys need to start making some decisions. So this is going to keep it still. And then with this one, we're going to make the circle. The bigger the stand, the more stable this will be. So I am going to go ahead and make it pretty big just to make sure that it doesn't fall over. So I'm going to cut that out. You also want to trace this out. So we're going to cover that up. And so in this video we're going to make the wick, we're going to make the stand. And since you're making the stand, and we will probably be doing that for future projects as well, you don't have to worry about all that weight that I put in the previous video, so don't concern yourself with that. But I do think this could stand on its own if I wanted it to. Just make our lives a bit easier. The top there, you could always cut it a little bigger, and then you trim it. You can trim it once it's actually on. So I'll cut those things out, I'll be right back. Okay, so I cut out those two pieces and I trimmed down the top piece so it fits perfectly in there. You should do the same. Now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna clean this up a bit so it's a bit more presentable as a stand. I want you to take your tape and you are going to wrap your tape up all along the edge of your stand. So all along here. Just flatten that down. I want you to do that all the way around. Once you do that, I want you to trace that circle twice. Okay, cut that out. Once that's cut out, you're going to take one side and you're going to glue it here. You're going to take the other one and you're going to glue it on the other side, and that should make for a somewhat decent stand. So I put the top on. It's not glued in there. It needs a hole for the wick anyways, so you can just go ahead and make a hole. Try to get it as centered as possible with your pencil. That's not going to be wide enough, so we're going to have to widen that a bit. Move your pencil around, so widen that, or extend it with your pencil as well until maybe you can get a finger through there, but don't put a finger through there. You're going to get a paper cut. So let me find something to widen this, but really I think that something like this might work, just pushing it out with the pencil. I'll be back. I'll tell you how to do that. So you can start it with a pencil, get a pair of scissors, even if it's not this big, and that should help you widen it quite a bit for our wick. And I'm going to show you how to make the wick right now, and then we'll see how big that actually has to be before we put it in there. All right, it's time to start making the wick. You're gonna take 3 sheets of paper and you're gonna crumble them like this. So you wanna twist it. And we're gonna tape it. Get it as tight as you can. So now you're gonna start taping it. Diagonally would work best, so you can cover the whole thing. Try to get it somewhat tight. And you're gonna do that 2 more times for a total of 3. The edges that you have here that are not taped, just cut them off. Go ahead and get yourself 2 more of those. Once you have 3, it's time to cut them down. Don't cut them too small because this is going to be your wick. Later you could cut it more if you have to. Go ahead and cut them to a reasonable length. You're going to take the 3 ends and you're going to glue them all together. Okay? So get that glue on top and inside and just glue the 3 together. Alright, once you have that glued together, and this might come undone, but whatever, you want to start twisting this. So you want to twist it so it looks like a rope, an intertwined rope. Okay? And once you have that done, you want to go ahead and glue the sides again because they're going to come apart. Paper's too strong. But this time, carefully, you kind of want to run along some of the edges here and glue them together as well. Be careful not to burn yourself, but we just need that added strength to hold it together. You need to hold it until it dries, okay? Because if you let it go, it's gonna unwind. And I think it's holding a little bit, so I'm gonna take advantage. And now, in these gaps, you want to start putting some glue so when you tighten it again, it holds a bit more. And just hold it until it holds. Again, you're gonna have to do this back and forth until you get it to hold. And that is what I'm going to do off camera. If the hot glue starts bulging a little bit, you could always go back and kind of shape it with the tip of the hot glue gun. Remember that. So I'm going to finish that off camera, do it again and again. So you see it's holding somewhat now on its own. I still have some gaps, so I'm going to keep going into those gaps and covering them up, tightening it back up so it holds. I moved the glue away. If you have a low temp glue gun, you could attempt that. If you have a high temp glue gun, don't. You might burn yourself really bad. So, you know, be mindful of that. I'm almost done. I'll finish it off camera. Okay, so it's finally at a place where it holds still. Now, the purpose of this is for it to look like intertwined rope, and I think it does that pretty well. So now I'm just going to cut off the ends. You need a good pair of scissors for this, and that's just so you get a clean looking edge there. You could keep it the way it is. That's up to you. It's up to your aesthetic, what you think looks best. And I'm just going to seal the top. You only need to do that to one end, whatever end is going to be the top of your rope, because this is going to go through here And the back, hopefully we can just fold it, and the back can go glued to the side of this thing. But now we know how much we have to open this hole up, and we still have to open it up quite a bit more, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I've opened up the hole, and now I'm just pushing it through to get that wick in there. Alright, since I put so much glue, it's a bit gunky, but that's fine. I think I have a solution for that later. Decide how long you want this to be. Of course, push it in that far. Actually measure it on your little creation here, and I think that's too long. That's up to your aesthetic, okay? So you just need to get it to the length that you're happy with. And try to make sure that the rough side of the top here is on the bottom. If not, just get rid of the extra pieces and you should be okay. Let's check out that length. I like that. I'm gonna make it a little shorter, and then I will glue it in there and seal up all the edge with hot glue. So now that I'm satisfied with this length, I had thought about folding it over, but obviously this is too big, but that's fine. I'm gonna leave it just like that. The weight shouldn't make too much of a difference because since we're adding the stand, and maybe I'm gonna push it in just a little bit more. There. So now once you get to something that you're happy with, go ahead and seal the edges and glue this one inside. So you need to cut this just right, and I'm just going to place glue all along the edge. Not that that's going to do it immediately. And now I'm just going to shove it in there, and I'm going to push it in there. Remember, it's cardboard, so it could be a little flexible. And take a look all around the edge. Take away the extra hot glue. Once it's dry, again, be careful not to burn yourself. And I'm going to try to push that back a bit. Now, I'm going to try to seal this edge with some hot glue. And with the hot glue gun right along the edge, you could push that down. We're trying a little bit of a different technique this time around, so I'm gonna ask you to try this technique with me. If you want to use some of the older ones you've already learned, then you could go ahead and paper mache this and paper mache this. But like I said, I'm gonna try something new. So what I'm gonna try to teach you guys every lesson is just something new. So there's that. Now we're going to take our base, right? And if your base is like mine and some of these edges are still standing up a bit, you could go ahead and just put a little hot glue in there, and so they get pushed down right along the edge. You could use hot glue to do the inside, but you're gonna have to do piece by piece, or you could just take a regular pure glue like I did and apply it and just lay it down, and then go along the edge with a hot glue gun to seal that. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna glue the sculpture onto the base. So I've gone ahead and flattened it all. Now it is time to glue this guy on. I don't want it too dead center. I think if you want it dead center, that's fine. When it tends to fall, it falls to the right side, so you want the larger space to be that space. But I think with a base this big, it is irrelevant. Of course, you don't want to put it over here because it might still fall. So you want to either do it center or you want to make sure that the largest area is the direction it's falling in. All right. So I'm just gonna try to glue this on with hot glue, and if this doesn't work, then I might have to. I don't see why this wouldn't work. We're gonna find out right now. And just hold it until it dries. And you could avoid all of this by just putting it onto the eggs as well. And let's go ahead and take a look. And yeah, it stands wonderfully. I don't see this falling unless if the glue here gets weak. You could go ahead and reinforce that bond by getting into the gaps here. And in time that connection might deteriorate and it might fall, but I think you have a long time before that happens. So now I'm gonna add the eyes, and then this guy will be ready for paint. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the eyes. For the eyes, you could use poster board, but take a good look at your reference. Let's go look at how the eyes are shaped first. Okay, let's take a look at the reference. So you can see that the eyes have kind of like an oval shape. They're also textured, but I'm not going to ask you to texture it. There's ways we can do it, but it just seems more trouble than it's worth for the effect, and at the same time eyes don't bulge, so I think if you leave it flat it should be fine. So that's what we're gonna do, and it will have a little texture because you are gonna use poster board, and even if you use regular paper, it'll still have some texture. You want to have the Bob-omb close to you. Let's take a look at that reference again, because we want to know how big to make the eyes compared to the body. You see, they're not that big compared to the body, right? So you don't want to do half the size of the body. If you want to change it up, like if you want to make it bigger, that's fine. You want to make it smaller, that's fine. So don't worry about that, and maybe that's a way to add your own little special touch to it. So here I have my sculpture, and I'm just going to measure with my pencil more or less, right? The end of the pencil at one end and my finger at the other, more or less the size that I think might be okay for the eyes, and I'm kind of leaning towards it being this big. So I'm just going to make that line and make that line and take that measurement again. So the eyes that I create are going to be more or less that big, and I'm going to make one, sample it, and then I will trace it. Actually, I'll trace it twice because the traced one will be a little bit bigger, and then I'll use that for my eyes. I may cover it in tape, and then I might use it for my eyes. Let's see. So these are the first ones. I experimented with something a little bit bigger, and that was too big, so then I finally settled on these as the ones that I will use. You experiment with different sizes until you find something that works for you. I've also thought maybe it's best to put them on at the end. Maybe not, but I thought if I put them on now, when I start to paint it, I'm gonna have to paint over it. But that's fine. I think I am gonna put it on now, just with some hot glue, and then we're gonna start getting this ready for paint, and I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just hot glue these eyes on. So I put the eyes on, and that looks great, and it's got plenty of texture. There's a little bit of a gap coming through, so like we've been doing for this whole project for the most part, just go ahead and seal that gap with hot glue. And that is going to give you all of the texture that you need, that we saw in the photo reference. And just once that's dry, go ahead and pat that down with the tip of the hot glue gun. Do that to both sides to make sure that that's smooth right there along the edge. Now that the basic structure is done, instead of paper macheing, we're going to apply a solid layer of pure glue, not diluted. It might work diluted, but I haven't tried it. I kind of experimented with this last year and it seemed to work okay, at least for, you know, a while. So if you paint this right now, all of the areas that we've sealed with the hot glue, they're not going to take paint very well. So that's why we're going to put that one solid layer of glue and all of those little nooks and crannies, including the wick and the feet even. You see I didn't paper mache the feet, so I've never done that before. So I'm going to put that solid layer of glue, and then I'm going to try and paint that. Let's see how that turns out. If it doesn't turn out well, which I think it will, I think it'll be acceptable, then you could always paper mache over it and then paint it that way. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna get my solid glue, and again, I'm using wood glue just because I don't have Elmer's glue at home, but Elmer's glue should work as well. And I'm just gonna start giving this just one solid layer of glue all over the place, especially in the areas that have been sealed with hot glue, because hot glue, it's plastic, so if you go to paint it, the paint will just peel off, and it's still probably gonna peel off. Like the one that I did last year, like a year later, it's starting to peel off, but you just touch it up and it should, you know, it should be okay for like another year presumably. And this is just to teach you guys a different technique, and it is a bit of a time saver. So I'm gonna do that, and once that layer dries completely, then I'm gonna start painting it. So as you can see, in all those areas that I just discussed, I'm laying it on rather thickly, just to give me the best chance for this to work, especially in the areas where there is the hot glue. Like I said, I didn't bother going too much over the sphere because it's paper mache, so we know that that's going to take paint well. As you lay it on like this, you have to hold it for a while because you're going to get drops of glue, just to make sure that they don't start, you know, falling. So once it gets a little bit stiffer, it'll hold, and you let it dry. And once it's dry, I'll come back and it's time for paint. And actually, we're going to go ahead and do a quick painting video next time. So that'll be it for this video. And I'm really happy with this project. It's great. Alright, it's important to understand that from the last video, I did end up putting a layer of very thin tissue over this, and I paper mached it because the tape was sticking out a bit too much. It worked fine over here though. It seems like the glue is going to take, so now it's time to paint. As our last project, we're going to take the color black, or we're going to take black, and we're just going to get it in all the little nooks and be generous with it. It's meant to represent the shadows, and I already started here, and I already did around the eyes, and just as our last video, we're gonna have to probably do multiple layers. And the bomb is black, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put a whole layer of black on the surface of the bomb and in all the corners. So now, after looking at the reference, I'm going to make the feet orange. So I'm going to make the feet orange. So I got a little bit ahead of myself and I went and I finished it, but I encourage you to try different painting schemes, right? This is your chance, your opportunity to make it a little bit more unique, and I always look forward to that. I did make the feet orange like I said I was going to. I went ahead and I painted the back, and I'll tell you how I did that in just a second. I painted this part that's supposed to be metal, and I painted the wick. I still have to paint the top to look like it's lit. So let me tell you how I did that. For the feet, I used yellow ochre, which we have in class, and I mixed a little bit of orange into that, or kind of half-half. So half orange, half yellow ochre, we have that in class, and that gave me this color orange for the feet, which I think is a little bit more accurate when compared to the original. Because originally I tried just pure orange and it was too orange. It looks like Daffy Duck. So the back is primarily just yellow ochre, and since our building style is very rough, right, our construction style, I went for a weathered look, and I did that up here as well. So I think that works better with the style that we're using. And the way that you make it look weathered is you just, once you paint it, you get all the paint out of your brush, and then you put some black in it, and then you wipe that away. You wipe the black off as much as possible so there's only a little bit left, and then you're just gonna go over it like that, right? And I did that with black, and I did that with yellow back here, and I did that with like a gray. So that's how you get all those weather marks. I did the same thing up here. At first I painted it a light gray, and then I did that with black, and then I did it with white. And the same thing for the wick. I went over that with white. And you don't have to make the top look like it's on fire. I'm just gonna do that for myself personally. Of course, I had to touch up the base a few times because it got orange on it. And I just went over that with white, and it worked pretty well. So this project is finished, and I am pretty happy with it overall. I think it looks great, and that's it for this one.